Hello and welcome to a new ship tour, and today we're taking a look at the Mein Schiff 7 of TUI Cruises, and as always we're starting with a few general facts. The ship is 315.7 meters long, 35.8 meters wide, has a gross tonnage of 112,982, can take up to around 2,900 passengers on board and has a cruise size of around 1,100. The ship was taken into service in 2024 and is a sister of the Mein Schiff 1 and Mein Schiff 2. Mein Schiff 7 means Mein Schiff 7 until the recent Mein Schiff Relax and Flow. The ships of the Mein Schiff fleet just got numbers, as the old Mein Schiff 1 and 2 left the fleet and are now with Marella Cruises. The two sister ships of Mein Schiff 7 are Mein Schiff 1 and 2. And we're now taking a look at all public areas of the ship that are accessible to me. We've skipped deck 2 because there's only the hospital, so we are starting on deck 3, the Atlantic deck, where we will find one of the main restaurants and the atrium area. There's also the theater in the front, but there's no access to it from deck 3, that's only possible from deck 4 and 5. We're starting with the Atlantic Classic, the main restaurant on board. There are two main dining rooms on board, both connected with this big atrium, which you can see here, and then there's one bar in the third deck above. Of course, we're gonna see all of that later on. Here in this restaurant you have a la carte service for breakfast, sometimes lunch and always dinner, with free seating. The crew will guide you to an empty table. It's a very nice and beautiful restaurant, and we're now continuing on back to the front of the ship to see the small atrium. Of course, it's a brand new ship, so the atrium is rather small, as always on the newer ships. Nowadays you usually don't build big atriums anymore, as they're taking away too much space that could be used for other things. So we have an atrium of 3 decks here, and here on the lowest deck we have the reception, we have a reading corner, and we have the so-called Saftwerft, which means juice yard in English. It is a place where you can get fresh juice, of course. We can already see the typical design of TUI Cruises. And here in this video a few parts of the ship are feeling a bit dark, which is because, of course, I did the ship tour very early in the morning, around 5:30 in the morning I started, and not all lights were fully illuminated in the night, of course, to save a bit of energy. That's of course a very good idea. So don't worry if an area feels a little bit darker, that's just because I was there quite early when most passengers are still sleeping. We have now already seen all public areas on deck 3, so we can head up to deck number 4, Seestern. All decks have German names for maritime things and also a suitable symbol, so it's quite easy to get along on the ship. As also quite typical on new ships, there are only 2 staircases, A and B, so it's quite easy to get along. Downside of this, of course, is sometimes you have to walk a bit further to get to the next staircase. Here on deck 4, in the rear part of the ship, we have the Atlantic Mediterranean, the second main restaurant connected with the one below, also almost the same menu, so you could also say this is one big restaurant, but it has a different design. It's designed a little bit more Mediterranean, as the name implies. But also this is an a la carte restaurant with free and open seating. We're continuing on further to the front, and here we can see the TUI bar. The TUI bar is very typical for the ships of TUI Cruises. It looks always almost the same, has the same design. It is a quite nice and beautiful bar, of course, in the colors of TUI Cruises, mainly blue with a little bit of red. The tables are not the smartest one because it's quite easy to knock them over with your knees, but otherwise it is a quite nice and beautiful bar. And what I really like about this bar is that there are windows directly facing the ocean. On most other bars on the ship you have a promenade in front of it, or you have a lifeboat in front of it, but here you have a window and you can just take a look at the sea, and that's what I really like. So you're actually feeling like on a ship here in this bar. Here we can also see the pictures of the TUI bar. So you've probably already realized there are a lot of German names on board, as Mein Schiff, of course, is a German ship, but all announcements were also made in English, so they are also welcoming international guests on board. But of course the main target group are German, so first language on board is German. All crew members, of course, have to speak English, so even if you're not speaking German, it's quite easy to get along on the ship. Here on the other side, we also have a station called the Landausflüge, that means excursions, so here you can book your next excursions. To make sure the excursion you want to join is not already fully booked, I would recommend booking in advance as early as possible. And of course, we also have some additional seating of the TUI bar here. Especially here in this area, you will find some more seats and some more windows. This is one of the most colorful bars on board with a focus on blue. Otherwise, I would say the design can be maybe compared to MSC. Also, MSC is going, at least on their newest ships, for a quite elegant design with slight use of colors, but mainly white and elegant colors, wood. So that's also what you will find here on Mein Schiff. I think Mein Schiff is a bit more adapted to the German taste, so therefore it is designed so that every German should like it. We are now at the Neue Wall. This is the shopping area of the ship. There is also a hairdresser, and quite unique, there is a tattoo studio on board, so you can get a permanent souvenir from your cruise here as well. Behind that we have Sturmfrei and Spielplatz. Here you can play some video games, and this is also the area for the teens on board. On the other side we have some more shops, and then on the left side, which is the port side of the ship, we have the Schaubühne. This is a stage and a small theater, so that is mainly used for readings and other smaller events. Unfortunately, theaters on board are always closed and will only be open 30 minutes prior to a show, so I cannot show you the interior of the Schaubühne, as I was just on board for 2 nights and therefore there was not enough time to visit a show in the Schaubühne. So unfortunately I cannot show it to you, because I thought it's more important to see the theater, which we'll see in a second. Here on the left side we have another shop where you can buy some logo articles, some TUI souvenirs, and now we're heading into the Galerie. That means gallery, so here you can buy some paintings, some artwork. We have also the Atelier, so there you can have some workshops learning how to paint and doing other things related to art. And right next to it we have the gallery where you can buy artworks, but it's also used as a bar. It's not my favorite bar on board because it only comes with 3 windows, so it could also be a hotel lobby bar. Doesn't feel like on a ship, and that's what I like about being on a cruise ship. I like to be connected to the ocean, I like to see the ocean. Here in this bar there are only 3 windows, so therefore there's not that much to see of the ocean, but there's live music in the evenings, and it's a very beautiful lounge, so maybe you like it better than me. For me it's not a perfect bar, as it's just missing windows in my opinion. Here we can see the other side, which is very, very beautiful, but as you can see there are only these 3 windows. From these 3 windows you can actually see the ocean very well. There's nothing disturbing the view, blocking the view, but of course you need to be lucky to get one of the few seats right next to one of those windows. And now we're heading on to the front, and here you can already see the theater is closed. There's a rope in front of it and a sign that tells you that the doors will be opened 30 minutes prior to a show. So of course we have to jump now, because I attended the show and then I just waited a little bit longer at the end of the show to take some shots of the theater without too many people. Of course, you know, I have to blur faces. If there's somebody recognizable in a video I have to blur the face, so that's also the reason why I'm doing my ship tours very early in the morning, so the ship is still empty, and that's also the reason why I waited a bit longer after a show, so we can now take a look at the very nice and spacious theater with a high capacity. And that's what I like about TUI Cruises over their German competitor AIDA Cruises. They have a proper theater instead of the theatrium, so everybody who's in a theater actually wants to see the show, so it's less background noises. It's a much nicer atmosphere. Here on deck 4 we also have some very special cabins. Those are single cabins with only 1 bed, and they are very small, only 8 square meters. And I had one of those cabins, so we will see them in the next video. And that's it for deck number 4. We can head up to deck number 5. It's called Pier. And here we have the theater in the front. We've already seen it, so we can head out onto the promenade. I also took this shot a little bit later when the sun was already up, so we can see it a bit better. It's not a walk around promenade, it's ending at the end of the ship. There is no promenade at the stern of the ship, but we can go to the bow of the ship, and that's also very nice. Officially this is part of deck number 6. You will see some stairs in a few seconds. So we're now heading shortly up to deck 6, but it's only accessible from here, deck 5. As you can see here on the right side, we have some cabins with a little bit less privacy. Those are the first cabins with balcony on deck 6, including the family balcony cabin. It's not a very frequented part of the promenade, but still your privacy is a little bit limited in this cabin, so maybe it wouldn't be my first choice of cabin. But what I really love is that you can actually access the bow of the ship. Of course, this is a very nice place to be during sunrise, like I just did, or also when the ship is going into a port or you're sailing into a fjord. This is a very, very nice place to be. You can take some very nice pictures here. But unless you have a suite, this is the only area where you can take a look to the front of the ship's bow. There are no further places with this view that are accessible for everybody. All other areas with this view are either part of a spa area or only accessible if you book one of the most expensive suites on board. But I really love that this area is accessible because here you can take such nice pictures. It's a very, very beautiful part. Also probably not the best known part of the ship, so I think a lot of passengers don't even know that you can go there. So that's of course why I included in this video. And now we're heading back down to deck number 5 and we're continuing our ship tour, the inside of the ship. Now we're back inside and here we have of course staircase A, and from here we're now heading to the rear part of the ship. And firstly we're gonna go to the casino. Of course it's a German ship, and on German ships a casino is not very important. A lot of German ships do not have a casino at all, so here it is a very, very small casino. And it's also allowed to smoke in here, and I'm not sure if something went wrong or it's like this always, but you could smell the smell of smoke 2 decks above and below in staircase A, so I think something with the ventilation was maybe wrong, or they should have 2 doors, like a little lock, to make sure that there's no smell of cigarettes in the cabin hallways. That was the downside. Otherwise it's a beautiful and nice bar, and of course for the smokers it's also nice that you're allowed to smoke inside. Of course this is the only place where you're allowed to do so, and we're now leaving it and just heading straight opposite. On the other side, above the gallery, we have the Abtanzbar. This is the nightclub on board, the disco opening late in the evening with live DJ music, of course. Unfortunately, it was closed, so as you can see, the door is not opening, so I cannot access it. But it's not looking too spectacular from the inside. It's a disco, so there are not too many seats. It's basically just a very big dance floor, of course, with a bar. We're continuing heading to the rear part of the ship. We're now back at the Neue Wall, which is the shopping area. Here on the right side we have the shops where you can spend a bit more money to buy jewelry, watches and stuff like this, and on the left side we have a shop for perfume and cosmetic products. We're continuing on to the rear part of the ship and we're now slowly getting back to the atrium, but before getting there we have another cafe. We're gonna see it in a second. It's the Café Central, and on the left side we have the photo gallery of course in English, and right next to it we have Meine Reisewelt. This is the area where you can book your next cruise. If you book your next cruise on board you're gonna get a small discount. Here we can also see a very beautiful model of the Mein Schiff 7 or Mein Schiff 7. Here we can see the picture of the Meine Reisewelt area, and on the other side we have the Café Central, which is not like a bar, it's designed like an actual cafe, also coming with the windows, but there you have the lifeboats in front of the windows, so you have just an obstructed view. But it is a very, very beautiful cafe. I didn't use it on my short cruise, as I already mentioned. I was on board for just a short cruise, 2 nights, so there was not enough time to try everything. Especially on short cruises with TUI Cruises on Mein Schiff, you usually have quite a party people on board, as TUI Cruises offers all-inclusive, meaning that a lot of drinks are already included, so you get free beer, free wine, so of course you're gonna have party people on board if it's a short cruise. Here we are in the atrium again, 3rd deck of the atrium, and here we have some food options. On the port side of the ship we have Ganz schön gesund, which is a bistro that is offering healthy food. Ganz schön gesund means pretty healthy. It's included. You can also go for some non-included options as well. Quite nice and beautiful restaurant. I didn't try it this time as there are so many options here on the Mein Schiff 7. Here we can see the pictures of this beautiful restaurant, and we're now heading to the other side. There's another important restaurant, and that is the Tag- und Nacht-Bistro. That means day and night bistro. It's open 24/7, and it is rather small. I would say on a regular cruise, size is enough. On a party cruise like this, it was always crowded because there was always somebody hungry after having maybe 1 or 2 beers too much. So for a party cruise, it was a bit too small, but TUI only does party cruises like this very rarely, as the ships are not perfectly designed for party people. They are more intended for passengers that are searching for relaxation, for doing some sports, for living healthy. That is mainly the target group of Mein Schiff. We're heading further on to the rear part of the ship, and we're coming now to the biggest and most important bar on board. It's the Schau Bar. It's a big lounge with a proper stage, so there's also some entertainment, some live music. We have a very nice design that is mainly intended to be liked by almost every German. It's a slightly colorful but very basic design that shouldn't offend anyone, so that's the typical design of TUI Mein Schiff. Comfortable seating, big stage, nice bar, a lot of windows, so it's a bright bar, but you have the lifeboats in front of it. The only downside of this bar is the big atrium, so you can look down to the restaurants. Of course, that's looking very nice, but the problem is passengers are eating downstairs. You hear the sound of the cutlery. If they are cleaning the restaurant, you hear the vacuum cleaners. And also the other way around, if there's some entertainment here in the bar, you hear it down in the restaurant, which can be a bit annoying. For example, if they're playing bingo or other games upstairs, you will hear that during dinner or lunch. So it has its ups and downs. I'm not the biggest fan of this concept. Would have preferred to just have the 2 restaurants connected with a little atrium and to have some more space here in the bar without the atrium. We're now coming to the highlight of the ship, and that is the area called Große Freiheit, Great Freedom in English, and that's the diamond of the ship. You've seen it already in the beginning of the video when I showed you the exterior of the ship, that there's like a diamond-shaped glass wall after the ship, and this is the area we are heading now. This is considered one of the highlights of the ship, and as it is a very special area, it also comes with special rules. Because here nothing is included, even though it's an all-inclusive ship. All drinks, all food has to be paid extra for here in the Große Freiheit. We have 3 restaurants, 2 here on deck 5 and 1 on deck 4. On deck 5 on the right side we have the Hideki, which is an Asian restaurant. You can get sushi and other Asian food. On the other side we have the Surf and Turf Steakhouse, which we'll take a look at later on. Also here the lights were still dimmed as it was very early in the morning, so usually there's more light in this area here, and that's why it may look a little bit dark, but of course that's not the case. That's just the case in the night or in the very early morning hours when usually all passengers are sleeping. We're continuing on to the rear part, and here we can see a bar. This is the Diamond Bar, and it is a small bar, but it comes with the probably most beautiful views of the ship. You have a big panoramic windows, you can take a look over the stern wave, and you can enjoy some nice drinks. But as we are in the Diamond, you have to pay for those drinks, even if it's a drink that is included in another bar. Here you have to pay for it. Therefore, it's no problem that the bar is so small. The demand is not too high, so most passengers won't go there, as they have to pay for drinks that are included elsewhere. On this cruise this was pretty nice because those party people, of course they didn't want to pay for drinks, they just stayed with the included ones, so here it was a calm, nice area where you could take a break from the party people. We're heading back down to deck number 4 just for a short second. This is the only access to the restaurant down here. It's called La Spezia and it's an Italian restaurant. Also not included, but this is the restaurant with the nicest views. A lot of tables are directly by the window and you can take a look over the stern wave. So it is, in my opinion, the most beautiful restaurant on board. And there's a restaurant like this on all ships of the TUI Cruises fleet, but they mostly have different topics. There are different restaurants here at this location, and here on the Mein Schiff 7 it's an Italian restaurant. You can go here for a pizza, then you pay like 10-15 euros, but you can also have a 5-course menu with drinks. You're gonna pay around 80 euros, so you can decide yourself how much you want to spend here, but I would highly recommend going here at least once per cruise, as it is a very, very beautiful restaurant. You can also go here for breakfast for like 8.50, I think. You can get a special breakfast served at a table here in La Spezia restaurant. Here we can see the pictures of the diamond on deck 4, and then we're heading back up to deck 5. Gonna take a look at the Surf and Turf Steakhouse. Once again, everything you're gonna buy here is not included. This is a exclusive area here on the ship, but therefore you're gonna get the nicest views. So now we've seen everything on deck 4, so we're heading back up to deck number 5 called Pier Deck. And as I already mentioned, this is the only possibility to get here. You can only access it via the Große Freiheit. There's no direct connection from the other parts of deck 4, as there's the kitchen in between. We're back on deck 5, and here we have the Surf and Turf Steakhouse, as far as I know, part of all ships of the TUI Cruises fleet. And as the name implies, here you can get some nice steaks. Also, this restaurant, of course, not included. You have to pay extra for food and drinks. Both restaurants here on deck 5, the Hideki and this one, are also coming with an outdoor terrace on the promenade, the end of the promenade. And we're now leaving the Große Freiheit. We're just gonna take a very quick walk through the Schaubar. We're heading to the promenade to just take a quick look at the promenade, and then we're continuing on the next deck. As you can see, we have the same buttons like on Aida Nova, Costa Toscana, that I mentioned in those ship tours, that they had some issues and were not working properly, and sometimes you had to push like 5 times until the door opens. Here on Mein Schiff 7, no problem at all. All of these buttons were working perfectly fine, so here it was working very, very well. Here we can see the promenade. As I said, it's not a walk around promenade, but it is a very long promenade, so it's also quite good for a nice walk if you want. But there's also a nice jogging track on the sun deck, which we will see later on. We're now back at the Ganz schön gesund and the Tag und Nacht bistro, and as you can see, there's also an outdoor area, so also those bistros have an outdoor terrace. We can now go up to deck number 6. It's called Boje, Bui, and there are 2 secret areas which are my highlights. I've already showed you the accessible bow of the ship here on deck 6, but also after the ship there is a very special part. It's my favorite bar. It's the Champagner Treff. It's a very small outdoor bar focused on champagne. Of course, it's also not included. It's a very exclusive bar, a bit more expensive, but as you can see, it looks very nice. It's very, very small, but it offers some fantastic views over the stern wave. Just comes with a small menu, mainly focusing on champagne, but there are also a few cocktails you can get here. Of course, you have to pay for all of them, and they are not cheap, but you're gonna get this nice view. And especially during the party cruise, this was like a very luxurious, calm alternative to the main bars that were quite crowded. Of course, from here you can also take a look up to the balconies. That also means especially the balconies on deck 7. Cabins 7221 and 7206 have a little bit less privacy, as you can take a look up to their balcony. There is also a part that you cannot see, but there's the little tent in front of it, so it takes a bit of view away from you, so maybe that's also important to know. So now we've seen all public areas on the lower decks of the ship, and now we can skip decks 7 Hanse, deck 8 Muschel, deck 9 Koralle, deck 10 Perle and deck 11 Krabbe, because on all decks we only have cabins. There are no more public areas to see, so we're just gonna head up to deck number 12, which is called Aqua, and on these decks you will also find the 2 pools on board. There are only 2 pools, but they are very impressive, and we're gonna see them in a second. But we're starting with the food options here on deck 12. Here we have the buffet restaurant called Ankelmannsplatz. Just like Neuerwald, it's a name coming from the city of Hamburg. Ankelmannsplatz, Ankelmann Square, is also a location in Hamburg. It's a square in Hamburg. In front of it we have the Backstube, the bakery. Here you can get sandwiches and bread. Even opens a little bit earlier than the buffet restaurant. And here we can see the Ankelmannsplatz buffet restaurant with themed islands for specific foods that you can get from there. And then you have some nice seating areas. They are quite comfortable, and it doesn't feel like a canteen like on other cruise ships. Can get quite crowded because Germans love buffet, and the buffet restaurant is open from early in the morning till late in the night. From breakfast it continues straight away with lunch, and from lunch it continues straight away with dinner, so you can go here almost all day long to get some food. Also a part of this restaurant is the fish market, and this is a restaurant with service at the table, but it's also included. And for example, for breakfast, this area is also used as an extension of the Ankelmannsplatz. We're now back at staircase B, and we're now heading into the indoor pool. This is the smaller of the two pools. Here on this side we have some sun lounges and you can see the pool. And on the other side we have the Bosporus snack bar, where you can get freshly made döner kebab, which is also quite rare on a ship and quite unique. And it's actually pretty good, we will see it in the next video. And also the pool is very nice, it is completely covered. It's not a retractable roof, so this is always an indoor pool with glass roof. So you have a lot of light in here. And you can see it's a nice and big pool, but this is the small one. We're gonna see the big one in a second. That's where we're heading now. We're now leaving the indoor pool and we're heading to the outdoor pool. Whilst going there, we're walking past the ice bar, and that's a bar where you can get some nice ice cream. Here we can see that on the right side, and we are also going to take a look at a picture in a second. On the other side we have a bar, the Unverzichtbar, which is a bar that serves both the indoor pool and the outdoor pool. So we're going to see that also later on. Here we are now at the main pool deck, which is very spacious. We have a big dance floor in front of the pool, we have a stage, we have a big screen, so you can use this area also for parties. And here we can now slowly see the pool. An impressive thing about this pool is that it is 25 meters long. It's one of the biggest pools on the oceans. It's very impressive and actually usable for proper swimming, so that is very, very nice. Here we can see the dance floor, the stage and the screen. You can see it on the picture as well. And now we're just shortly heading to the Unverzichtbar, which is the pool bar here on board. And as you can see, there's a door, and behind there's a second bar served by the same crew members for the indoor pool. Now we're heading further on to the front. As you can see, we have some seating options here. We have comfortable sun lounges, and there will be some additional sun lounges spread out later on. I'm usually starting my ship tour around 5:30 in the morning. Now it's around 6 o'clock, and now the crew is slowly starting to open the pool. There were already the first swimmers here, and they are starting to set up the sun lounges. It's a very nice, big and spacious pool deck, so very, very nice. And the pool, as you can see, is very, very impressive. 25 meters long, one of the biggest pools on the oceans. Here we can see it on another picture. Here you can get an impression on how big the pool actually is. Additionally, there are some hot tubs. And now we've seen the pool area, we're heading back inside again. And here on the left side we're gonna see the Spa and Meer, Spa and Ocean in English. This is the spa area. Unfortunately, as always on my ship tours, I cannot show it to you because of course it was still closed, and as soon as it opens it's also not possible to film in there. But here behind this white wall, which will be moved away as soon as the area opens, you have the spa area. Here on the right side we have the Reupload, which is a very calm lounge. On the older TUI ships, this used to be the Himmel und Meer lounge or bar and would have offered a nice view over the ship's bow, but unfortunately here on this ship class they moved it to the side, so you still have a nice view but only to the side of the ship. And it is a very calm bar, intended as an alternative to the other bars with music, entertainment. Here there's no entertainment and there's also no music, so it's very quiet in there. For me personally it was a bit too quiet, so I didn't spend time in here, but it's a very nice bar. If you, for example, want to read a book and have a drink in the same time, this is the place to go. We're now heading up to deck 14, Horizon. Here in the front we have the X lounge, but it's only accessible to the passengers who've booked an expensive suite, so we can go up to deck 15, and this whole deck 15 is only accessible for passengers who've booked a suite. Here we have the X bar, and on deck 16 above we also have the X sun deck. So all these areas called X something are only accessible for the guests of the suites. There are also some very nice suites with 2 decks on deck 15, but this whole area is not accessible for me. And we're now back at deck 14. As you can see, this is the highest deck stretching over the whole length of the ship. There are 2 more decks in the front, we've just seen them, and then there's 1 more deck, the rear part of the ship, and deck 14 stretches over the whole length of the ship. And here on the right side we have the Überschaubar. The names of the bars here on board are mainly like little puns, little play on words, and Überschaubar means manageable, and you would say this is a rather negative word, but it's not intended like this, because Überschau or Überschauen means overview, so it's actually the overview bar because you can overlook the pool area. So that's a little pun here, and you will find this in many bars here. Of course, they are only working in German. Here you can see this blue track. This is the jogging track, and it's very, very long. As I already mentioned, TUI Cruises is a cruise line for active passengers that like sports, that like healthiness. So of course also the jogging track is a bit longer than on other ships. And here we can take a look to the front again. Of course also here sun lounges will be set up, and you have a lot of sun lounges in the sun but also in the shadow, so you can decide whether you want to be in the sun or the shadow. We're now walking past the arena, which is the indoor sports hall. We're gonna see it later on in the video. So let's continue on to the rear part of the ship. Here on deck 14 we have the Außenalster Bar and Grill. This is a combination of a bar and also a little restaurant. You can get some small snacks here as well. If you want to dine outside, that's possible here, but also we're gonna go back down to deck number 12, there's no deck 13, to see the outdoor dining area of the Ankelmannsplatz. I cannot really perfectly show you the Außenalster Bar and Grill, as chairs were still stacked up and the bar was not set up yet. Of course, they're gonna set it up a little bit later, before the bar opens. Then it looks of course much nicer. But now we're heading back down to deck number 12, and here we can see the outdoor dining area of the Ankelmannsplatz, the buffet restaurant. Of course it comes with some very nice seating options here directly at the railing, where you have a very nice view over the stern wave, over the ocean, whilst enjoying your lunch, breakfast or dinner. So I really like this area. Here we can see the tables. Of course it's not the most comfortable seating, but for sure it has to be the seating with the nicest view. And now we're heading back up, and we can go directly up to deck number 15, because we've now seen almost all parts of deck 14. Deck 15, as I said, one of the decks that only exist at the very front and the rear part of the ship. They're not connected with each other. So now we're heading back up to 15, the Brise deck, and here we have the Hohe Luft Bar. This is the highest bar that is accessible for everybody on board. It's a small and nice bar with a very nice view over the stern wave as well. Really like the bar, it's quite comfortable, it's protected from the wind due to its location aft of the ship, and it's also wind protected by the glass railing, and it's also protected against the sun as it's partly covered. Also the jogging track is going up here, so to make it a bit more demanding, there's also a little incline in the jogging track, and there's also this little panoramic path that we're gonna see in a second. But first let's take a look at the arena, which is the sports area of the ship. We're now heading inside. Many ships have an outdoor sport area, but here it's an indoor area. And that's quite smart because, as you can see, there is a grandstand for spectators, so you can also use it for some events. And also, of course, you can use it for things other than sport. It can also be used for entertainment purposes. But we're heading back out, and now we're heading to the jogging path, and we're going to this little bridge, this little panoramic bridge that I mentioned a few minutes earlier. We're walking down there. It is very nice. There's one little problem maybe for those people who actually want to do some sports, because due to its nice location it's also used as a viewing point, and there are always a lot of passengers standing there enjoying the view, and it's rather small, not very wide, so sometimes if you're jogging and there's some nice landscape at the same time, here it will get a little bit difficult to walk past the spectators just standing there and enjoying the view. But otherwise it's a very nice idea, and I really like this place and I really like this area. And now we are back on deck 14. We are walking past the arena that we've just seen. Here we can also see this area of the sun deck again. Also here there's a lot of space for sun lounges, and from here we can either go inside back to the indoor pool, but we are now heading to the areas for kids. Here we have the Nest baby room and we have the Insel der Seeräuber, the kids club. Of course I cannot access them here in the video, so we're now heading back up to deck 15 and we're going to reach the last areas of the ship that we haven't seen yet. And this is the Sport und Gesundheit, that means sports and healthiness. This is the gym of the ship. Here on the starboard side we have a lot of cardio machines. And on the other side we have the rest of the sports equipment, and it's a very big and very nice gym. They have a very big selection of sports equipment. The sports equipment also has a very good quality, and compared to the rather small size of the ship with around 3,000 passengers, it is a very spacious gym. I've seen ships with a much higher passenger capacity with a less good selection of sports equipment as the Mein Schiff 7. So one of my favorite gyms at sea so far. There is also a course room that we're gonna see in a second, and that will be actually already the last public area that I can show you, because then we've already seen all public areas of the beautiful Mein Schiff 7. To get to the course room we're walking past staircase B and the elevators again. And then we are reaching the course room here through the side entrance. And of course there are a lot of courses here. As I said before, Mein Schiff is also intended for active and sporty passengers. During this party cruise the gym was always very empty, which was very nice for me, and you will see a bit more about this cruise and my cabin in the next video. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Here you can see when the next video will be uploaded and the name of the song. As always, I'd like to say thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and I hope to see you in my next video then.